Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of OK Takes. My co-host Edward and I will provide you with some really awful takes and some really great takes that'll all even out to being just okay. As of July 25th, 6:07 o'clock, the Dodgers are the best team at being really bad in all of baseball. All the blowing leads bullshit, it's physically hurting me, but got back on track what seems like the past 2 days, and we're feeling pretty good. So after our Dodgers talk, we are going to finish the show by talking about the U.S. men's team loss to France. Wow, that was really sad. It was like the antithesis of the LeBron smiling through it all, can't believe this is my life meme. So we are going to talk some Dodgers. All right, so where are you right now? How do we feel before we head into all the talk?
I still feel good. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I do. I just do. And I know there's a lot of stats we're going to throw out today about a certain player that make it pretty hard to feel good, but I'm not going to ignore everything else that certain player has done up till the last week. So as far as the Dodgers go, I still feel confident. We are very injured right now. The fact that we just ripped off a 2-game win streak with the lineups we were putting out is quite incredible. So I feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what? I wanted to bring that up at the end, but I'm going to bring it up now before we go into Kenley talk. But let's take a look at the 2 lineups that we put out and actually got wins with. So Saturday included in the lineup was Pujols hitting cleanup, Austin Barnes hitting 5th, Noisy hitting 6th, Billy McKinney hitting 7th, and Luke Raley hitting 8th. Shockingly, we only put up 1 that game. And then to round out today's lineup, Billy McKinney was hitting 2nd, Matt Beattie was hitting 5th, McKinstry was hitting 7th, Luke Raley was hitting 8th, and shockingly, squeaked out 3 runs, and they were all home runs. It was all three-run solo shots. But let's take it. I just think that's fucking hilarious that we're putting out lineups with Luke Raley, Billy McKinney, and Sheldon Noisy like nobody's business.
Hey, Billy McKinney hasn't looked terrible at the plate. Today he had a couple of walks, I think. 2 walks today, maybe a hit over the last 2 games if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, still not great.
Yeah. I have no expectations for him. None. I have no opinion on him whatsoever, and it's because that it's just the state we're in. It's how things are with injuries. You can't really blame him, and you can't blame the front office for getting a guy like that. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk some Kenley, because this is the story of the week. This is what everybody and their mom is talking about. So I really understood the game of baseball a lot better from the closer standpoint after this week, because we have gone from it's just a whole melting pot of emotions after this week. It's like, how do you make sense of what's gone on? So I just want to take it to his last 4 appearances. So last Sunday, July 18th, he blew a 1-run lead at Coors, and then the following inning in the 10th, Charlie Blackmon walked it off. You're like, okay, not great, but his ERA was still like 1.27. Now let's fast forward to Wednesday, July 21st. So with first place like hanging in thin air, he gave up 3 earned runs, 3 hits, 2 walks, only got 1 out, and his ERA ballooned up to a crazy 2.15. So let's talk right now. Let's talk Wednesday night, because that's where fireworks really started bursting, at least on Twitter, with fans ready to give up. So what were your thoughts Wednesday?
You know, my thoughts after Wednesday are my thoughts today. Closers blow saves. You know, this is going to happen. Kenley's not going to go perfect anymore. I don't think he ever did. Like, he's never been the perfect closer. He has his mishaps. He has his mistakes. It's going to happen to just about every closer ever. Is going to have slumps that last multiple games. You can't expect that. You can't expect your closer to not have weeks like this, or some closers even have multiple weeks like this. We saw from Kenley last year, even though it was a 60-game season, it's still a pretty good sample size to see he's struggling right now. And then the way he started this year was incredible. So I feel the same way Wednesday as I do now. It's just a slump. Let's not forget what he did in June. And let's forget what he did this last week, because this is more of an outlier than how he started the year.
Because there is two sides to it. Were these back-to-back blowed saves, is this something that, like you said, was an outlier, or is this something we're going to be continuously seeing through the rest of the year, and is going to be the reason why we A, lose the wild card, or B, don't make it, or C, lose a division series or any series in the playoff? Is it going to come down to Kenley and he cannot perform? So that's kind of like, where do you stand? Like, it's like, where does everybody stand? So there's people who stood on, I never want to see him again. He's the worst closer we've ever had in history. This guy is a fascist. He's the reason for all the homeless problems in LA County. He's the reason that COVID-19 exists. And then you have people who are more towards the middle, like, I think that's where we stand. Like, yeah, it sucks what he did, but how are we going to forget everything else that happened before?
Yeah. I mean, what I would say, if I could look one of those, because I've heard plenty of Dodger fans say, we need to get rid of Kenley. He can't be our closer anymore. What I would do is I would look him in the eye and say, do you remember the month of June? 8 for 8 in saves, 10 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 10 strikeouts, and no earned runs for an opponent's batting average of 111. Mm-hmm. Like you can't dismiss that. A month is a better sample size than 2 games. And I know we'll get to it, but he ended up blowing another save after that. But even still, a month is a better sample size than 2-3 games over the course of a week.
Mm-hmm. It's the way it is. I mean, it's just like a kid, and it really made me think of like the comparison of closers versus kickers in football. Is that everybody remembers Cody Parkey for 1 kick, but they never forget about, well, and he's been kind of bad after, but nobody remembers all the field goals that went well. Like, nobody forgets about all the things he did right. It's just the double doink. Kenley had his double doink this week. That's the only way I could put it. He had one off the upright and he had one off the lower bar. But yeah, I still was okay with how things went. And then let's fast forward to Thursday, because Thursday was bad, but we can't forget the bad breaks. It's like you have to hold 2 things are true at the same time. Was he bad? Yes. Did Sheldon Noisy play like a fucking moron and have something that could have easily been the 3rd out of the inning, and then that's it? And then did Darren Ruff go around for strike 3? Yes. So we could play chicken, and this is where we're at with Dodger fans, especially after Thursday night. We could play chicken and the egg. Is it Kenley sucks, or he should have got out of the inning? I'm going to be, once again, in the middle and say he was bad, but there was 2 opportunities to get him out of the inning.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that game, and Kenley Jansen he basically made 2 saves in 1 game. like that play at second was, honestly, I thought he was out even after the replays. If video review is supposed to be used for like indisputable video evidence is the term, I would not call what I saw on the screen indisputable evidence that he was safe, especially with the call on the field being out. I think in that situation, you have to stick to the call on the field. They didn't. It happens. It wasn't that egregious to overturn it. The egregious thing was the check swing, the check swing being called the check swing. It's just, and why that's something you can't review. I don't know why you can't review a check swing. That doesn't make any sense to me, because that's always going to be a subjective call. You should be able to call New York and say, hey, get some other eyes on this. But, I mean, he got screwed out of 2 saves in 1 game, and I agree with you, but I also fall closer to the side that he was just screwed out of it and he wasn't that bad. But, I mean, to be fair, he did give up a couple of hits, but he had 2 outs with, I think,
2 outs.
Only 1 runner on, right? He got to 2 outs and there was only 1 runner on. And then that's kind of when the whole, or it might have been 1st and 2nd, and then that's when the whole debacle started. So I mainly blame the umps for that game, but also he wasn't the best.
Mm-hmm. And Kenley's, because it's Kenley, nobody else is going to bring up the topic of the check swing not being reviewable. If this was Trinan, that's what the conversation would have been. If it was Kelly, that's where the conversation would have gone. But that was, I think, one of my biggest takeaways from it is that we have replay to distinguish a big call. We don't, and it's just like with the NFL and like, okay, as a Saints fan, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm referring to right now with a big call that impacted a big game. So it's like, this is what you have replay for those situations.
Exactly.
And you really did catch a big fat ricochet right there.
Yeah, I'm a little rattled. That was uncalled for. I'm having traumatic flashbacks.
But at least nobody went flying. But I mean, for the most part, that's what we need replay for. I don't understand a lot of baseball because there's things like this that pop up all the time. This is one of those things that needs to change. It's like the last play too. Every part of like the last play of any sport should be reviewable because you can't have it hanging in the hands of umpires who are known fucking morons.
Yep. Yeah, very frustrating.
So, and then kind of final note on Thursday night, I do respect Roberts. So Roberts is like, it's for me. Once again, it's like, I do appreciate that he has a brass pair. It's like, fuck it. I have my guy. I'm going to stand with Kenley through the good and the bad, through hell or high water. This is the guy who I want to be the Lord of the Plains. But he's not good on back-to-back. Like, we know this about Kenley. He's not great when it comes to pitching on back-to-back days. So
yeah,
it's really, I mean, this is what makes, also though, like, I have to point out, this is what makes sports the best, is because there's no right answer.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually, the only right answer is the one you have.
Exactly. The only right answer is the one that you believe.
All right. And then fast forward all the way to Saturday, and it's a 1-run lead. He's coming in, 1-0 ball game. The 1 run coming from Austin Barnes' solo shot. So what were your thoughts coming into it? And just overall, like, I want to start there. It's like, did you think they should have gone back to Kenley? Were you wondering about a Joe Kelly appearance?
I was wondering where Joe Kelly was, but also I wanted Kenley out there. The only way to break a guy out of a slump is to let him continue doing what he's supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, you can't expect Cody Bellinger to get out of his slump if he doesn't play. Now, if he's hurt, like he was supposedly today, then sure, take him out. But you can't expect Kenley to get out of his slump if you just sit him and you don't use him in save situations after he's had a night off. You know, so I was glad to see him out there. It was the right move. It worked out in the end. And yeah, I mean, you can't expect Kenley to break out of his slump if you don't pitch him in the ninth.
Yeah, he got bucked off the saddle. There's no two ways about it. I mean, if it was like the intro scene of like Dallas Buyers Club. You see guys just go flying left and right while at the rodeo. So we see how frustrating it was for him. And more than anything, I want to point it out, like, Kenley is the biggest gentle giant the Dodgers have ever, or at least in my opinion, and this is just prisoner of the moment, and people are going to be like, oh, you fucking idiot. But he's the biggest gentle giant the Dodgers have had in a long time. It is the epitome of a gentle giant. So that's why I'm also frustrated as well with like the way he's being treated. And I know this is kind of a tangent, but okay, you have the guy who has the most saves in franchise history. You have a guy who's been there through good and bad. He's homegrown, and he's never caused a ruckus. You know, this is a guy who has never had any at least what we know of, and there's obviously some disagreements that we don't see behind, or going on behind cameras that we don't see. But for the most part, this is a class act. And it's a term that gets thrown around all the time, but he's a guy that you don't know, like, he's just, you'd never associate Kenley with, oh man, not this guy. Like, he's going to be some trouble. This is a guy that you kind of have to worry about if he's going to go off the rails.
Yeah, he seems to be just really a stand-up guy, like, you know, class act, like you said. You know, he's never one to... You know, he's never going to cause locker room problems. He seems like he gets along with everyone. Everyone seems to like him. You know, so you're right. You're totally right.
He's an absolute mensch. If I had a daughter, I would want him to take her to prom.
Yeah, I would too.
But I don't know. So all right, random tangent, but let's go. There's like been 3 Kenley tangents within this whole segment. But yeah, so let's go to Saturday. So he's set to face the heart of the order. This is where he's going to have to see Blackman. He's going to have to see McMahon. He's going to have to pitch against Story. And he handled it well. And the best part of this, and he walked one guy. Can't forget that, because that's been a lot of the issues as well, is his control. I think he's had 6 combined walks within those 2 outings, or the 2 outings against San Francisco.
Yeah, he's walking a lot of batters this year. So that's concerning, but as long as he works around it, it's just whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, he has 1 runner on, and you're like, okay, well, this could be CJ Cron about to send a shot into the night that is once again going to make Dodger fans ready to impale him with a rusty nail. Like, is this the one that's going to have Dodger fans waiting outside of his house with torches and pitchforks?
Yeah.
But he got through it, and he fucking ended that game the best way possible. Fastball swinging, blew it right past him. There's no electric feeling like watching a closer rear back, give it their best fastball, everything they have left in the tank, and watching a guy completely whiff.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome. That's like the definition of slamming the door.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it, is that you can't just open that, you slam it shut, that's it, ball game over.
Yep. And heard nothing from Dodger fans last night.
Exactly. I truly believe, and it's just how we are just wired as humans, but we'd rather be miserable than happy. We get more enjoyment out of hating Kenley than liking him.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Fans, especially sports fans, they think that it's more fun for them to beat their players while they're down than it is to give them praise while they're performing. I guess they get some feeling of power. I don't get it. I've never been like that, but a lot of people are.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Frank the Tank-itis. All right, so we're going to wrap up Dodgers talk quickly and then get to U.S. Olympics. But let's talk about the things that did go well, because in order to build a lead, in order to blow a lead, you got to build it in the first place. So let's just quick little shout outs, because we are running long for the Dodgers. But Walker and Urias in their 2 starts this week against the Giants combined for 14 1/3 innings and only gave up 2 earned runs. Huge, dominant, absolute gems. And then you have David Price, who was 1 out away from a quality start on Friday. He went 5 2/3 and gave up 3 runs. So, man of the hour, the guy who has put the Dodgers on his back. Like, every meme that you have about a big big backpacks, a ton of whatever it is to amplify putting something on your back, this was Chris Taylor. So,
oh yes,
I have to say it. I think he's the most important player on the team.
I agree, and I have one take for you that I know isn't really relevant now, but it is more important that we bring him back than Seager.
Yes. Great take.
It just is. I don't want to get into all that now, but I just had to let that out.
Well, you brought up a good point on the tweet on the account, but it's you give him a blank check, you tear it out of the checkbook, you slide it over and say, what do you want? And then you also want, what do you want included with this? Do you want or do you want, how big of a statue do you want in front of the stadium? Do you want your own, I think Blake Harris said, do you want your own weekly bobblehead giveaways?
Yeah, I mean, the only way we give him a blank check is if he's not a Scott Boras client, because then if he's a Scott Boras client, he's going to ask for $60 million a year. But, I don't think he's a Boras client, so we'll give him a blank check and say, what do you want?
I don't care whatever the hell he wants. If you want to be, if there's a week of him wanting to change the OKC Dodgers to the OKC Chris Taylors, be okay.
Yeah, we'll do it. I'll go to those games.
If you want to have every, where it's Jackie Robinson Day, where you want to have every player wear your jersey on the Dodgers, and maybe not even the Dodgers, the whole entire organization for a week, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, anything to retain that guy.
Anything. I love what he's doing. Because Mookie goes down. What do we do now? It's another injury to an injury-riddled team. And this is how we start off in the leadoff role. So the last 6 games in the leadoff role, this is how we started games. A double, a home run, a single, a double, a single, bunt single, home run. You can't make this shit up. That's, we talk about like slamming the door. This is also how you open up the door and kick a team, or open up the door and open up the game and punch a team in their mouth.
That's kicking the door open, is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible. I mean, in this whole month, I mean, in the month of July, he's hitting .333. He has an OPS of .938, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs. Without Chris Taylor, I don't know where this team would be. I genuinely don't.
Because we have to start thinking, like, look at what Sheldon... So we see Chris Taylor performing at a damn near MVP level to start the second half. And let's start seeing what a replacement would look like. A replacement would look like Sheldon Noisy. Like, we see...
Yeah.
I guess that's the only good part about Sheldon Noisy, is looking at how bad he is reminds us of how good CT3 is.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God. I would do anything to not have him and Luke Raley touching Dodger Stadium dirt ever again. Like when, I think Mike Vrabel said he'd cut off his dick to win a Super Bowl. I'd cut off my own dick just to never see Sheldon Noisy, Luke Raley, and DJ Peters in our starting lineup ever again.
They've been pretty darn bad.
Awful. And there's also some other guys who have been playing really well. And I totaled out the slash line for Will Smith, Max Muncy, Turner, and Pollock in the second half. They're hitting, batting average is at .316, on base percentage is at .401, OPS is at 1.043, and between the 4 of them, they have 11 home runs and 32 RBIs. And then Will Smith also has a walk-off home run, and he has a go-ahead home run in the bottom of the 8th today. So, like, there are good things that are happening. This is the bad part when we start playing really bad, and especially with Kenley, that it just takes up, like, if there's like a pie chart of Dodgers conversation, it's 97% Kenley, 3% what should we 3% of what did Dave Roberts do wrong. And like the sliver is like a millimeter, it's like the length of a centipede's leg of topics of conversation of things that went right. So yeah, these guys, there is a lot of good things going on, and it might not seem like it.
Yeah, definitely. People are, like we said, people love to be negative. You know, they don't like to touch on what's been positive recently. They only like to talk about the negatives. And sadly, there's been a lot of negatives, but also there has still been some positives, and people are ignoring the positives. And I mean, hopefully for this, we have a day off tomorrow, so hopefully that means I think Muncy will be back from paternity leave. Congrats to Muncy and his wife. So hopefully Muncy's back, and Bellinger should be back, and hopefully Mookie soon.
Yeah. I feel very good. Like, these 2 wins, and I might already mention it, but I needed them like oxygen. I needed them more than anything to just remind myself that this is all fine. We're 21 games above 500.
And I mean, one quick thing before we touch on Team USA, a big thing over the bullpen in the last 2 games, or a big thing over the last 2 games has been the bullpen. 8 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 Ks, no runs.
Exactly.
Another positive that people are forgetting.
Yes. I'm so happy about that. So happy. It's enough to it's just a breath of fresh air that, like, this team is fine.
Yep.
The sky's not. I mean, it's just like, you know what we have? We have a Chicken Little. It feels like Chicken Little is part of it. Like, sky is falling 24/7.
Yeah, that's how Dodger fans are.
Yeah. All right. Now let's go to some team that actually has some problems. Like, this is actually not good. This is really bad.
No.
So the U.S. team played at 5 a.m., at least West Coast time, played at 5 a.m. today. Lost to France 83-76. My question is, did the KD B-Day video play a factor in the team snapping a 25-game win streak?
Oh man, I don't know, because I love that video so much, just because of Katie's personality. Like, that thing is so funny. That video is so funny. I love it, and I would have thought it would have made KD like pissed off, and he would want to take over. But I think you're right. I think it was in his head. He was like, man, it wasn't my birthday, and they still sang happy birthday to me. Like, he was probably thinking about that the whole game because he was bad.
Very bad. And I've kind of made a personality, and I'm really realizing it lately, but I made a personality out of just hating birthdays. And for me, this is my personal nightmare. This is my like jigsaw and saw. Like, if he had to set up a scenario for me, this is the ideal one to make me have every ounce of blood inside my body just boiling. Because there's nothing worse than, I can't even take being in a room of like 50. I hated it in elementary school. I couldn't take like 25 7-year-olds singing happy birthday to me. And you have to realize these are the greatest athletes the USA has to offer. There's probably like over 100 people in there just chanting happy birthday like it's a hymn in church. And just watching his face, his face doesn't move, and he looks so uncomfortable. He's just the most relatable. That's just it. He's just, for me personally, he's one of my favorite players in the NBA because he's so relatable. He hates being outside. He hates the birthday song, and in his head, all he wants to do is go back to argue with 14-year-old kids in their room about basketball. Like, he just wants to argue on Twitter all day and play basketball. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a more relatable and likable person ever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that video was funny. Disappointing game though. I mean, the only good part about it was the fact that they used the NBA on NBC theme song for like the intro and the outro and stuff like that. Hearing that theme song again was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk just a little bit of game, or talk a little bit about the game, because it was so bad. But I want to say this though, like, yeah, they lost, but France doesn't really have that bad of a roster. Like,
no.
Yeah, I mean, you have Rudy Gobert, you have Nick Batum, and you have Evan Fournier. And I even realize it because he just doesn't get that much attention playing most of his career on the Magic, but he's been like good. I just never realized it until now, but like, on this year on the Magic, he put up 19 a game and shot 46 from the field, and he got traded to the Celtics, and his points per game dipped to 13, but he still shot 46% from three.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player, and I mean that they had no answer for him today. He had 28 points. I believe he was like 11 for 22 from the field and 4 for 12 from three. Like, they had no answer. Mm-hmm. And he proved that he's a good player. They're a good team. So I can't say I'm overly shocked, but still, like, Lillard and KD have to be better. I mean, they combined for 21 points, 7 for 22 from the field, and 4 for 15 from three. And those are supposed to be the two guys. Those are supposed to be the two number ones on this team, and they did that.
Yeah, I think that was, I had both of them combining to shoot 4 for 15 from three as well. Because if you would think that, like, okay, at the end, like, these guys aren't used to the FIBA rules, so they're constantly foul hunting. They're going to get beat up inside. They're not going to be able to handle bigs like Rudy Gobert, for example, I think is somebody that would definitely give them a lot of trouble in a format like this. But it's not like he crazy dominated. It's not like he's Shaq in 03. Like, they just couldn't hit shots. When they really needed, they couldn't hit shots. Like, you could say they need to be better, but I mean, they missed their final 9 shots, and then 5 of them came in a 21-second span in the final minute. And they were up 74-67 with 3 minutes and 23 seconds left. And then France outscored the U.S. 16-2 from there. So if KD just hits his shots, and here was an opportunity for KD to take the lead with like the final minute, then yeah. So it's just going to come down to, can you shoot the ball, KD? Like, can you just make it? Like, I don't have any greater analysis than just make it.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I mean, another thing that isn't to be overlooked is the third quarter. I mean, France outscored the U.S. 25-11, and the majority of that domination came when they had 2 bigs on the court, France. I mean, Rudy Gobert and I can't think of the other France, like, center forward hybrid right now, but when those 2 guys were on the court, the U.S. kind of looked lost defensively. I mean, they're not a big enough team. I don't think the U.S. brought enough size to handle a team like France. So hopefully against Iran, it goes better. I believe that's their next opponent, isn't it?
Yeah. This is hilarious. So I checked the odds on Bovada, and it has the U.S. as a 37.5 point favorite, and Iran money line is plus 1,800. So honestly, I just didn't look up any stats about Iran before then. I was like, fuck it, I have to take plus 37.5.
Yeah, I might do that actually right after we stop. I'm gonna take plus 38.5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Because this is the game where if you don't good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah.
You're an awful team if you don't. Okay, one, a win's expected, but you're an awful team if you don't cover. I will challenge that. This is one of those where you're facing a team that doesn't have a single guy in the NBA, and I think the only guy that played D1 basketball, he played at Oregon, and he's 42 years, or excuse me, he's 32 years old. So
yeah, a loss to Iran, I imagine, would be
you claim
would
COVID.
Be probably
you claim the COVID outbreak.
It would probably be the worst loss in the franchise, in the history of the country, in basketball.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Is that if that happens, you pull COVID cards so fast.
Yeah.
You go to every red district Japan has to offer and just start pumping away.
Yeah. Just start licking doorknobs at at all the biggest outbreak spots in Japan.
Yeah. All right. So that is going to wrap up the 10th episode of OK Takes. So you could follow Edward on his Instagram and Twitter at Edward_Vento. You can follow myself on Instagram and Twitter at MattWeiner20. But who gives a flying fuck what we have to say and what we have to offer to the interwebs? Follow OK Takes Pod. Please follow the OK Takes Pod. So you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter at OK Takes Pod. That is OKAY Takes Pod. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.